They told him Earth was a death world. They didn't mention the humans were worse than the predators. Krevix's primary sensory stalks twitched in absolute agony as his survey pod slammed through the canopy of what the locals called, and I'm not making this up, a forest. A forest. As if naming a collection of massive organic pillars something pleasant would make it less terrifying. The impact sent him sprawling across the cramped interior, his exoskeleton cracking in 3 places. Maybe 4, he wasn't exactly counting at the moment. The emergency klaxons were screaming. Not the polite, gentle warnings you'd get for a minor system failure. Oh no, these were the full horror movie soundtrack alarms reserved for truly catastrophic situations. You know, the ones that basically translate to, you're about to die, probably painfully, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. Deathworld designation 7-749. Earth. The actual literal Earth. Krevix had seen the briefings. Every surveyor in the Galactic Union had seen the briefings. Mandatory viewing complete with graphic imagery, and at least 7 different emergency contacts for trauma counseling. This planet, this beautiful blue-green nightmare sphere, held more ways to kill you than any other documented world in the known galaxy. And that was just counting the wildlife, never mind the weather, the microbial life, the plants. Yes, the plants could kill you too, or the geological instability. His secondary hearts were hammering against his chest plates, doing that irregular rhythm that meant panic, pure, undiluted panic. The pod's medical scanner blinked weakly, informing him with almost cheerful indifference that he had sustained multiple fractures, internal bleeding, and a severe concussion. Fantastic, absolutely wonderful news. Through the cracked viewport, Krevix could see towering trees because of course they were enormous, and shadows moving between them. Shadows, on a planet where literally everything, and I mean everything, had evolved to hunt, to kill, to consume. The classification reports hadn't been exaggerating when they'd stamped this world with a threat level apex warning. 47 distinct apex predators. 47. Most planets had 1, maybe 2 if you were unlucky. His communication array was fried, naturally. The distress beacon was flickering, barely functional, and somewhere in the distance, he heard something howl. Krevix closed all 4 of his eyes and wondered which statistical category of Earth predator would eat him first. The footsteps came approximately 17 minutes after the crash, which Krevix had spent alternating between whimpering and trying to remember the proper death rituals of his people. Heavy footsteps, bipedal, steady, confident, which was somehow worse than if they'd been cautious. Then she appeared. A human. An actual living, breathing human. Just walking through the forest, alone, without armor, without visible weapons, without a military escort or protective atmospheric bubble or literally anything that would suggest survival instincts. She wore something the database would probably classify as recreational fabric coverings, had long dark hair tied back in a simple binding, and carried a large pack on her shoulders like this was, what, a casual afternoon stroll. Krevix's translator implant kicked in as she stopped at the pod, tilted her head and said, "Well, that's new. Not, help. I've found a crashed alien vessel. Not, oh gods, what is that thing? Just, that's new." Like she'd found a mildly interesting rock. She crouched down, peered through the viewport at him, and her face did something that Krevix's pattern recognition software identified as a smile. Humans smiled when they were pleased. This should not have been pleasing. This was a crash site. On a death world. "Hey there, buddy," she said, her tone impossibly relaxed. "So, you look pretty banged up. I'm Maya Torres. And before you panic more than you clearly already are, yes, I know, first aid. Yes, I have supplies. And no, I'm probably not going to let you die out here, because the paperwork would be absolutely insane." The paperwork. She was concerned about the paperwork. Krevix tried to speak, but his translator was struggling. His vocal synthesizer made a sound like grinding metal, which, fair enough, several parts of him were currently grinding metal. Maya stood up, shrugged off her pack with practiced ease, and started rummaging through it. "Let me guess. Survey mission gone wrong. Happens more than you'd think. Well, not with aliens usually, that's definitely a first for me personally, but I've pulled plenty of hikers out of worse situations. One guy last year fell into a ravine and broke both legs. Both. and he was still cracking jokes when I found him. She said this like it was charming. Like self-destructive humor in the face of mortal peril was an endearing character trait. You people, Krevix finally managed to croak out, walk around here, on purpose, for enjoyment. Maya looked up from her pack, genuinely grinning now. Oh yeah, it's called hiking, sometimes camping. Really clears the head, you know. Fresh air, beautiful views, the occasional life-threatening situation to keep things interesting. She paused, pulling out some kind of medical kit. Welcome to Earth, by the way. Try not to die before I can get you stabilized. It really ruined my perfect safety record. The sound came from behind Maya, low and rumbling, and every single one of Krevix's survival instincts, all the ones screaming at maximum volume already, somehow found another gear, a deeper, more primal gear that existed solely for moments of absolute, inescapable doom. Through the cracked viewport, Krevix saw it emerge from between the trees, quadrupedal, muscular. Tawny fur covering a body built for nothing but efficient murder. The head was broad, the ears pointed back, and the eyes, oh ancestors preserve him, the eyes were locked directly on Maya's back. His database pinged unhelpfully. Mountain lion, Puma concolor, apex predator, ambush hunter, bite force sufficient to crush vertebrae, status extremely dangerous. Behind you, Krevix shrieked, his translator crackling with static. Predator, category alpha. You need to run, hide, call for military support, do something. Maya turned around slowly, way too slowly for someone who had just been identified as prey. She looked at the mountain lion, which was creeping closer now, low to the ground in that way predators do right before they pounce. The creature was young, maybe adolescent by the size, but that didn't make it less deadly. If anything, young predators were more aggressive, more unpredictable, more likely to take stupid risks, like approaching a human. The cougar made a sound, something between a growl and a yowl, its mouth opening to display teeth that could shred flesh like tissue paper. It took another step forward, clearly deciding that Maya looked like food, or at least something that might have food. Its shoulders hunched, muscles coiling, preparing to lunge. And Maya Torres, this absolutely unhinged human woman standing in the middle of a Deathworld forest, did something that Krevix's brain simply refused to process as a logical response. She growled back. Not a little growl, not a warning sound. She dropped into a crouch, spread her arms wide to make herself look bigger, and unleashed a guttural, chest-deep roar that echoed through the trees like thunder. It was loud, so loud that Krevix felt it vibrate through the pod's hull. It was aggressive, dominant, the kind of sound that said, I am the bigger predator here, and you need to back off right now. The mountain lion froze mid-step. Its ears flicked forward, then back again. Its eyes went wide, pupils dilating in what Krevix's pattern recognition software identified as confusion mixed with genuine alarm. This was not the response it had been expecting. This was not how prey behaved. Prey ran. Prey screamed. Prey made themselves smaller and hoped for a quick death. Prey did not challenge you to a dominance contest. Maya growled again. Louder this time, taking a step forward. She stomped her foot against the ground, hard, making a sharp cracking sound. Get out of here, she shouted, her voice carrying that same aggressive edge. Go on, this is my territory. Mine. The cougar, this apex predator of Earth, this evolutionary masterpiece of hunting efficiency, did something that Krevix would have bet his entire life savings was impossible. It backed up. Not running. Not yet, but definitely retreating. Its tail twitched, its posture shifted from aggressive to uncertain. It made a smaller sound, almost questioning, like it was asking, wait, are you serious right now? Maya stomped again. I said go. The cougar hesitated for exactly 2 more seconds, then turned and bounded off into the underbrush, moving away at speed. Krevix stared. His translator had stopped working entirely, probably from shock. His brain had stopped working too, if he was being honest. Maya straightened up, brushed off her hands like she'd just finished some minor chore, and turned back to the pod with that same casual expression. Sorry about that. Where were we? Oh right, keeping you alive. You didn't kill it, Krevix finally managed to say, his voice coming out in a strangled wheeze that his translator barely managed to convert into coherent language. Maya looked over at him while pulling open her medical kit, one eyebrow raised. Kill it. Why would I kill it? It's just a young cougar, probably curious more than anything. Maybe hungry. First year on its own, I'd guess, still figuring out the whole hunting thing. She said this like she was discussing a neighbor's puppy, not a creature that could disembowel her in under 3 seconds. It was going to attack you. Krevix protested, feeling his secondary hearts doing that irregular panic rhythm again. Standard protocol for apex predator encounter is immediate lethal response. You had the advantage of surprise. You could have, I don't know, used a weapon, anything. Yeah, but here's the thing, Maya said, sorting through bandages and antiseptic with practiced efficiency. That's a waste of everyone's time and energy. The cougar doesn't want to fight me, it wants food. I don't want to fight it because fighting is dangerous and I like my internal organs where they are. So we do the dominance display thing. Establish who's the bigger threat and everybody walks away happy. Well, mostly happy. The cougar's probably still hungry. As if summoned by the mere mention of its existence, the mountain lion reappeared at the edge of the clearing. Not approaching, just watching, sitting on its haunches like a gigantic house cat, tail flicking back and forth, eyes fixed on Maya with what Krevix could only describe as expectant interest. Maya sighed. The kind of sigh that suggested this was not the first time this exact scenario had played out. She reached into her pack again, this time pulling out a sealed package of something. You're not going to leave, are you? She said to the cougar, her tone somewhere between annoyed and amused. Fine, but this comes out of my emergency supplies, and if I have to eat tree bark later because of you, I'm going to be very disappointed. She tore open the package. Some kind of preserved meat by the smell. Krevix's olfactory sensors were still working, unfortunately, and tossed a portion onto the ground about halfway between herself and the cougar. The predator's ears perked up immediately. There, Maya said, making a gesture with her hand. Take it and go. We're square. The cougar approached cautiously, sniffed the meat, then picked it up with surprising delicacy and retreated back to its watching spot, where it proceeded to eat, right there in full view, making absolutely no move to leave. Krevix's brain was trying very hard to process what he was witnessing, and failing spectacularly. This was not predator behavior. This was not prey behavior. This was not any behavior documented in any survival manual ever written. This was a human, an apex predator in her own right apparently, sharing food with another apex predator, and both parties were just fine with this arrangement. You people are insane, he said flatly. Your entire species is completely irreversibly insane. Maya laughed. Actually laughed, as she started applying a brace to his fractured limb with terrifying competence. Oh, you're just figuring that out now. See, here's the secret about Earth predators. Most of them, and I mean most, are just trying to survive. They're not evil murder machines, they're animals doing animal things. You show them you're not easy prey, you respect their space, you don't act like food, and 9 times out of 10 they'd rather avoid the confrontation. She tightened a strap, making Krevix wince. You just have to show them who's boss. Assert dominance. Make it clear that messing with you is more trouble than it's worth. And the 10th time, Krevix asked, almost afraid of the answer. Maya's grin turned slightly darker. Well, that's what the bear spray is for. But we'll cross that bridge if we come to it. The cougar finished eating, licked its paws with feline precision, stood up and simply walked away into the forest, like this was the most normal transaction in the universe. Krevix watched it go, his mind still refusing to accept any of this as reality. Welcome to Earth, Maya said cheerfully, going back to her medical work, where the wildlife is terrifying, but the humans are somehow worse. Maya worked with the kind of calm efficiency that suggested she'd done this before, possibly many times, which raised several extremely concerning questions about human recreational habits. She pulled out item after item from her pack, each one more sophisticated than the last. Medical scanner, check. Antiseptic compounds, check. Pressure bandages, splints, pain medication, thermal blankets, and was that a portable surgical kit? How long were you planning to be out here? Krevix asked, watching her assemble what looked like a field hospital. 3 days, maybe 4, Maya replied, running the scanner over his torso with practiced precision. But I always pack for 2 weeks minimum. Rule number 1 of wilderness survival. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Rule number 2. Nature doesn't care about your schedule. She frowned at the scanner readout. Okay, so, good news and bad news. Good news is, nothing's immediately fatal. Bad news is, you got fractures in your, I'm going to call them ribs, because I don't know Voltorian anatomy, some internal bleeding that's mostly stopped and a concussion that probably hurts like hell. Mostly stopped? Krevix repeated, his translator adding an appropriately panicked inflection. Hey, mostly is pretty great considering you crashed a spacecraft into a forest, Maya said, pulling out a device that looked disturbingly like an injection system. This is going to help with the pain and stabilize the internal stuff. It's broad spectrum, works on most carbon-based life forms. We tested it on the Centaurians last year after that skiing incident. Skiing incident. Don't ask. She administered the injection with practiced efficiency, and Krevix felt a wave of relief wash through his system as the pain receded to manageable levels. There we go. See? Modern medicine. It's fantastic when it works, moderately terrifying when it doesn't. But let's stay optimistic. She continued working, applying bandages and stabilizers to his fractured limbs, talking the entire time in that casual conversational way that humans apparently use to cope with stress. Or maybe she just wasn't stressed. That seemed entirely possible given everything else he'd witnessed. You know, this reminds me of the time I found a hiker who'd been treed by a black bear, Maya said, wrapping something around his primary arm. Poor guy had been up there for 6 hours, absolutely convinced he was going to die. The bear had honestly forgotten about him after like 20 minutes and was just eating berries underneath the tree, but the guy was too scared to come down, so I had to coax him out while the bear just, did bear things nearby. That sounds horrifying, Krevix said weakly. Black bears are pretty chill most of the time. It's the grizzlies you have to watch out for, and polar bears. Polar bears will absolutely hunt you for sport. She said this with the same tone someone might use to discuss mildly inconvenient weather. Oh, and there was that time with the wolf pack. That was exciting. They were more curious than aggressive, but try telling that to the tourists who'd wandered off the marked trail. I had to escort them back while literally surrounded by wolves, just walking casually, wolves on all sides, everyone pretending this was fine. Why do you do this? Krevix asked, genuine confusion overriding his fear for a moment. Why do humans deliberately put themselves in these situations? For recreation, your species has achieved space travel, climate control, virtual reality entertainment, and you choose to walk around in forests filled with things that want to eat you. Maya paused, considering the question seriously for the first time. Because it's real, I guess. Because out here, you're not just existing, you're alive. You're part of the ecosystem, not separate from it. And yeah, it's dangerous, but so is crossing the street in a city. At least out here, the dangers are honest. A bear doesn't pretend to be your friend before it mauls you. It's just a bear, doing bear things. She grinned. Plus, the views are amazing, and my therapist says it's cheaper than actual therapy. She pulled out a communication device, finally, and pressed a series of buttons. Hey, dispatch? Yeah, it's Maya. I've got a situation here. Remember those contingency protocols for extraterrestrial contact? Yeah, those. I need an evac team at my coordinates, and tell them to bring the xenobiology kit. I've got a Voltorian. Looks like a survey crash. Multiple injuries, stable but needs proper medical attention. She listened to the response, rolling her eyes. No, I'm fine. Yes, I'm sure. No, I did not get eaten by anything. That was one time and the bear barely broke skin. Krevix stared at her. One time? Different story, don't worry about it, Maya said, waving dismissively. Evac will be here in about 40 minutes. Until then, try not to move too much. Stay hydrated, and if you see any more wildlife, just let me know. I've got bear spray, an air horn, and a really aggressive attitude. We'll be fine. The worst part, Krevix realized with growing horror, was that he actually believed her. Can I ask you something? Krevix said after a few minutes of silence, broken only by the sounds of the forest around them, which now seemed significantly less threatening with Maya sitting nearby like some kind of terrifying guardian. Why did you growl at that cougar? Why didn't you run or call for help, or use a weapon? Maya leaned back against a tree, pulling out a water container and taking a long drink before answering. Because running triggers the chase instinct. Prey runs. And I'm not prey. She said it simply. like it was the most obvious thing in the universe. See, here's the thing about predators, and I mean all predators, not just the ones on Earth. They're making calculations constantly. Risk versus reward. Is this potential meal worth the energy, the possible injury, the fight? Most of the time, if you make yourself look like too much trouble, they'll move on to easier options. But you're not actually more dangerous than a mountain lion, Krevix protested, though after everything he'd seen, he was starting to question that assumption. Aren't I, though? Maya countered, her expression shifting to something more serious. Humans are persistence hunters, always have been. We're not the fastest, not the strongest, not the biggest. But we're smart, we're adaptable, and we absolutely do not give up. Our ancestors literally chased prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We can outlast almost anything on this planet. That cougar knows that, instinctively. Millions of years of evolution telling it that bipedal primates are bad news. She gestured around at the forest, at the wild, untamed landscape. This is what I mean about understanding predator behavior by being predators ourselves. We're not separate from this ecosystem. We came from it. We evolved here, alongside everything else trying to kill us. So we understand it on a level that, no offense, your species probably never could. None taken, Krevix said, because honestly, she was right. The Voltorians had evolved on a garden world, temperate and peaceful, with minimal predation pressure. The most dangerous creature on their planet was a herbivore with bad eyesight and a tendency to stampede when startled. Humans go camping, Maya continued, warming to her subject now. We pack up supplies, go deep into wilderness areas, set up temporary shelters, and just exist there for days or weeks. We hike up mountains that could kill us with a single wrong step. We kayak in waters with sharks. We study volcanoes while they're actively erupting. And we do all of this voluntarily, for fun, often paying money for the privilege. Your species is suicidal, Krevix said flatly. Maya laughed. Maybe a little, or maybe we just understand something that safer species don't. Life is risk, every single day, every single moment. You can hide from it, build walls around yourself, stay in climate-controlled environments and never face anything uncomfortable or dangerous. But then, what are you really living for? She took another sip of water. Out here, with the bears and the cougars and the wolves, you're reminded that you're alive, that you matter, that you're part of something bigger than yourself. My people would never do this, Krevix admitted. We wouldn't even consider it. The idea of voluntarily entering a dangerous environment without full military support and emergency evacuation protocols would be classified as mental illness. And yet here I am, Maya said with a grin, perfectly sane according to at least 2 different psychiatrists, doing exactly that. The animals out here, they're not monsters, they're just trying to survive, same as everyone else, same as you, same as me. You respect that, you understand that, and suddenly the forest doesn't seem quite so scary anymore. In the distance something howled again, and Krevix flinched. Maya didn't even look up. That's just wolves. They're miles away, probably found an elk or something. Probably, she said, probably, like it was comforting. The evacuation team arrived exactly 38 minutes later, descending from the sky in a transport vehicle that made considerably less noise than Krevix's crash had. 3 humans emerged, all dressed in practical gear, all moving with that same casual confidence that Maya had displayed. Not one of them looked concerned about being in the middle of a forest on a death world. "Hey Maya," the first one called out, a tall human male with dark skin and an easy smile. "Heard you found yourself an alien. That's a new one, even for you." "Marcus, good to see you," Maya replied, standing up and brushing dirt off her pants. "Yeah, this is Krevix, Voltorian surveyor, crashed about an hour ago. Stable injuries, mostly fractures and a concussion. Oh, and we had a visit from a juvenile cougar." The second human, a shorter woman with red hair tied back in a complex braid, actually laughed. "Did you do the growling thing again?" "I did the growling thing again," Maya confirmed with a grin. "Classic," the third human, another male with graying hair and weathered features, chimed in while unloading medical equipment. "I remember when you did that with the grizzly up near Yellowstone. Park rangers still tell that story. Bear apparently looked personally offended that you challenged it." They were swapping stories. Krevix was lying there, injured on a death world, surrounded by predators, and these humans were casually exchanging anecdotes about threatening dangerous wildlife like people might discuss interesting meals they'd had. "Wait until you hear about the moose incident," Maya said, helping them set up a portable medical scanner. "That was the one time I actually thought I might die. Moose are no joke." "Moose are absolutely no joke," Marcus agreed solemnly, beginning to scan Krebix with professional efficiency. "Okay, buddy, we're going to get you fixed up and transferred to the proper xenobiology medical facility. You're going to be fine. Probably a few weeks of recovery, but nothing permanent." "You're all like her," Krebix said, his translator catching the amazement in his voice. "All of you. This isn't exceptional behavior for humans, is it? This is just normal." The three rescuers exchanged glances, then Marcus shrugged. "I mean, yeah? This is pretty standard wilderness response work. We do this all the time. Well, usually for humans who get themselves into trouble, but the principle's the same. Last month I pulled a rock climber off a cliff face during a lightning storm," the red-haired woman offered. "Month before that, Marcus here wrestled a injured hiker away from a territorial elk. It was going to stomp him," Marcus protested. "What was I supposed to do? Let it happen?" As they carefully loaded him onto a medical stretcher, still chatting among themselves about various near-death experiences they'd had while doing their jobs, Krebix had a revelation that settled into his consciousness with absolute certainty. The galaxy had it wrong, completely, fundamentally wrong. Earth wasn't dangerous because of its wildlife, its weather, its diseases, or its geological instability. Those were just circumstances, environmental factors that existed on many worlds. Earth was dangerous because it had produced humanity. The species that had evolved alongside nightmare creatures and somehow decided the appropriate response was not to hide, not to build walls and stay safe, but to go outside and challenge those creatures to dominance contests. A species that had been hunted by every apex predator on their planet and had simply become apex predators themselves. A species that looked at a mountain and thought, "I should climb that," looked at an ocean and thought, "I should cross that," looked at space itself and thought, "Yeah, we can go there too." Not because they were the strongest, not because they were the fastest or the most physically formidable, but because nothing on their nightmare planet scared them anymore. They had survived everything their world could throw at them, every predator, every disaster, every impossible challenge, and they had come out the other side thinking it was fun. The transport lifted off, carrying Krebix away from the forest, and he made a mental note. When he recovered, when he filed his official report, he would be updating Earth's danger classification, not for the wildlife, though that was certainly terrifying enough, but for the humans themselves, because any species that could survive Earth and still go camping on weekends was not to be underestimated. Ever. Maya waved at him through the transport window, still smiling, completely unbothered by everything that had happened. Krebix waved back weakly, already composing his report in his head. Priority alert. Threat level, humans. Approach with extreme caution, or better yet, just bring snacks and try not to look like prey. They would probably growl back anyway.